The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
If you really want to doge, this is how you doge. You don't vote for bad legislation that expands government. Thank you.
Now we're talking about taxpayer money, and we're talking about accountability. It is their money. This isn't a government program we're actually spending on. We're actually giving it back to the people of Idaho.
There's other options for making our ballots more secure, such as using watermarks or putting holograms on the ballots.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
I asked the question rhetorically, if we gave them another $1 billion, they wouldn't be happy. Well, we've given them $2 more billion, and it's not enough.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
Other states like Texas and Florida have enacted similar laws to address illegal immigration, both locally and in their communities. And Idaho has the right to protect itself when the federal government has failed to do that.
COVID presented us with quite the enigma. We didn't really know what it was or what to do, but that is no excuse to violate the rights of the citizens of the state of Idaho.
Say vote no on this and let the teachers teach and quit bringing in coaches to teach the teachers to teach, and let's get education going again in Idaho.
I don't know what's coming after this current administration for the feds, and we need this law because our federal laws on immigration have failed.
Mr. President, I think it's incumbent upon us to allow parents to use their hard-earned dollars to provide what's best for their children.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
My concern is that the resilience of Idahoans who believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility will be eroded.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Yeah, watch it.
Come on, guys.
Well. Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Idaho Signal. I trust you are following our social media channels, sharing the broadcast all around Idaho. I'm Matt Edwards, and there is something electric in the air around the Statehouse this session. I can definitely feel it all the way up here in North Idaho. A subtle but powerful shift that's got me thinking that we're finally seeing the tide turn. Now, while the left is out there on the fringes, screaming at churchgoers, picking fights with ICE, plotting to storm their congressmen's offices today like some deranged reenactment of J6 cosplay, the conservatives here in Idaho are quietly getting to work. Now, at the federal level, Congress is a bad joke, gridlocked, performative, a clown show where nothing meaningful really happens. You might be tempted to lump state legislatures in the same bucket, but not here, I don't think. Not here in Idaho. We've built a solid coalition of conservatives in the Statehouse that we're no longer just playing defense. We're forced to govern, and so govern they will. Think of it like a football team that spent years on a lights-out defense, holding the line, stopping drives here, frustrating the other side, giving up points and practically losing, right? But then finally, the ball turns over, whether it's an interception, a fumble, a punt, whatever it is. The good guys have the possession now. And the crowd's roaring. The momentum is flipping. And suddenly, it's not just about surviving. It's about advancing the ball, scoring points, and doing it responsibly for the fans who pay the tickets. There's no showboating. There's no reckless plays. Just smart, disciplined offense that puts real points on the board. That is where we are. It's where I think we're headed. So after decades of watching big government creep, wasteful spending, programs that sound noble but deliver squat, the conservatives in Idaho finally have the ball, and it's time to lead. Enter a certain gentleman, Representative Josh Tanner, the new co-chair of the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee, JFAC. This is the committee that decides how your tax dollars get spent and how much of them stay in your pocket instead of the bureaucrats and their buddies. Tanner's not sitting back waiting for miracles. He's out there on a small but unprecedented tour right now. He's hitting every House committee to explain exactly what JFAC does and how each committee has real power to cut spending from the inside, and why it's their job to look at the past legislation that they've funded. Are those programs actually working, or have they gone off the rails? Are they bloating budgets with no results? He's even introducing committee members to the budget office folks who specialize in the agencies they oversee. This isn't window dressing, folks. It is a strategy. It is planning. It is someone finally willing to do the hard work of taking charge. And by our research, this kind of proactive education and coordination across committees is unprecedented. Tanner's stepping up to the challenge so many of us, including him, including you, have been calling out for years. The legislature, not just the governor's office, has to manage our money wisely. But to do that, you need a plan, you need a roadmap, and you need leaders ready to execute. So we've got pledge signers holding key spots on JFAC. They're chairing or vice chairing other committees. The pieces are in place. Now is the time to strike. Let's cut wasteful spending where it's wasteful. Let's eliminate unnecessary programs that don't deliver for Idaho families. I mean, look at what just happened over in Virginia, where the left just regained control of state government, and they've wasted no time enacting their agenda to destroy Western civilization from within. So let's not mess up our chance here in Idaho to move swiftly and build a conservative foundation that will withstand the attempts of the lunatic left to destroy our families. Let's return money back to the people who earned it. Let's make government leaner, more efficient, and actually accountable. No more excuses. No more. This is the moment to prove that when conservatives get the ball, we do not fumble. We move it forward for the benefit of every hardworking citizen of Idaho. And of course, this doesn't happen if you do not stay engaged. You must hold them to it. That is my charge to you, a challenge to you. Do not relent. Stay focused. Stay with the signal. Stay in the game, guys. Stay in the game. One person who I know is fully in the game is Representative Kyle Harris, and he joins me now. Representative Harris, it's great to see you, my friend. I know you have a huge task entering your second session as legislator here. You're now a member of JFAC. Congratulations. What is it like being on your first week in session on JFAC?
Well, first of all, hello, Matt. It's great seeing you again. It's a wild ride. Like, it's a strap-in garden hose situation, right? It would have been nice if I was on there last year, but, you know, I kind of thrive in these weird budget analytical situations, like reading legislation. I just have this weird knack for it. I don't know why. I don't know, but it's exciting. There's a chance to actually make some real meaningful change to the size of government. And under, you know, Representative Tanner is the new co-chair. His ideas are huge right now. And I think with his leadership and kind of guiding us on where we need to really dig in, we're going to get a lot of stuff done. I mean, I've been joking around with people here telling them, I hope you're ready to campaign from your office because we're not leaving until June because I'm not moving on these budgets.
Oh, that's awesome. So, okay. So tell me, so specifically then, I guess, what are some glaring things right now? I mean, we've talked about Medicaid expansion. We've talked about some of the other big ticket items, but what do you see as like the first area or place that you can start managing more efficiently?
Well, you know, right out of the gate, I asked Director Wolf, or I'll call her Director Wolf, but she works for the governor's office, about agencies that did not withhold the 3%, right? So if the government, who's the chief officer of the state, who's in charge of all these 189 agencies that we have, says, hey, we're tight on money, I want 3%, and there's agencies that don't do anything, first of all, why are they not doing anything? What's their intention behind not doing it? And she did give me a list, and surprisingly, there's some people on that list that kind of blew my mind. I've talked to a few of them already, and they are definitely willing to give us that 3% now. I don't know if that's good enough. Since they withheld, I might go for 5, 6.
I mean, honestly, Representative, I mean, does that kind of appall you a little bit? I mean, you guys are in charge. You guys, you are in charge of our money. Yeah. And you give it to the agencies and you are directing them. I mean, I remember you had your bill last year that said if the schools get money for a specific thing, they have to use it for that. And that of course didn't make its way over in the Senate. So I mean, at a certain point, having you in there, and I know how analytical you are, and I also know that you're not going to take their BS, right? I mean, that's right. Kind of like what you're telling me here in a nice way.
Yeah, I will be towing the line. I asked that question today in committee when we had the director in from State Board of Education, and they were talking about how they were going to change some of their funding mechanisms for universities and what they're trying to do with outcome-based funding sources, which I agree with. I think outcome-based is smart, right? We're only paying for things when there's a good outcome. We're not paying for bad outcomes. The problem is their accountability mechanism is themselves. Like if a university isn't hitting its target, then they're going to come in and intervene with the policies of what they're doing. I said, well, at what point do we get involved, right? If we're going to allow you guys to regulate yourself, which is what we've been doing forever, is allowing agencies to regulate within their agency or within their funding, right? But now the accountability just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in public education when we're graduating kids that don't meet the curriculum requirements. They're graduating with 32 credits. Where's the accountability mechanism? Why last year in education, why was I sitting in there hashing out curriculum, for the first 2 weeks, and then hearing that we have schools that aren't even meeting the minimum standard? So why are we passing a standard if nobody's going to meet it? And then what's the accountability mechanism? And so this year, everything I do, doesn't matter if it's in JFAC, doesn't matter. I'm bringing that bill back this year. We need to start having that conversation within the building of where's the accountability, the flag bill, where's the accountability? When county assessors or counties or cities as a whole are breaking law, which is in law, what's the accountability? Do we have to go to the AG's office? Should it come to JFAC where we just say, you know what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, money matters, and we're going to make that choice.
You know what? I'm gonna say something because I know you're not going to say it, or you may not want to say this, but like this is the kind of attitude that we need in government, versus the other kind of attitude that I see in the same in people who are in your same position as you are, who scoff at the idea of giving people their money back. Like this school tax credit where you get money to take your kid to whatever school you want. And they cry, where's the accountability? Where's the accountability of parents to make sure that they're doing this? Well, we don't have accountability under your watch.
Right.
And so now here you are and folks like you who are saying we will hold you accountable. And it seems like the only way you can hold these people accountable, because you can't go around firing everybody, is holding their money back, right?
That's the end all be all of government, right? Is finance. Right. If we just say you brought DEI back into universities, guess what? We're going to pull $6 million out of your funding for it. I mean, that's money is where the end all be all is. If we pull your funds and you're forced to lay people off, that's a result of your bad behavior. That's not my fault. I had to do something, right? So we need to get back to holding government accountable. That's why most of us are here, is trying to rein government in and to bring that oversight in and start being responsible with people's money, because it's not our money.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be my focus on JFAC. I do have the education budget and government affairs, which is every state agency. So
yeah.
So I'm coming in hot and heavy, and we'll see where we land.
Can you give us your opinion on zero-based budgeting? Can you first at least explain what zero-based budgeting is, and if it's something that you guys might be able to try and get through?
It's been on the books for a while. I personally, to be honest, I'm not 100% behind like what it is or how it operates. Again, first year on JFAC, so I'm just kind of picking up things as I go. I think the idea is to get back to the basic need of your budget with no inflation. No add-ons, no enhancements, just this is what it takes. bottom line to keep it going, which I like the idea when they did split that from enhancements, because it gives us a better chance to really dive into budgets of what they need. The problem that we're seeing now is that in the maintenance budgets, there's been carryover from years and years and years of ongoing, that when we went to this, it just got stuck into the maintenance.
Right.
And so that's, I think, a lot of what Representative Tanner, Chairman Tanner, is trying to do right now in these committees is go back and say, hey, we can affect current things, but we can't affect policy. And let's say 40% of these entire budgets is all policy driven from the legislative body. So we need to go back and address that policy, see if it's something we need, see if it's something we don't need, see if it's outdated, see if it's even being used anymore. And they're just taking the money and throwing it in a pot, right? So, I mean, that cigarette ignition propensity bill from last year where they wanted to take that funding, and I finally figured out there's close to $700 million in there that they wanted to just give away to people. And I'm like, well, why are we using this for something to offset the cost of the general fund so we can give some tax breaks back to the people of Idaho?
That's right, man. That's right. If you're not using it, then give it back. Don't just don't just develop new programs and things.
Right.
Say,
we don't need FTPs. We don't need growth. We need to just use it to offset, because it's dedicated money from tobacco, right? So we take that, we pay our firefighting bill. Now you just save $700,000 out of the general fund for the firefighting bill. General fund money can go back as a tax cut to the people, right? Like, I can't give them the tobacco money, but if we use that tobacco money for something that it's qualified for, then we have general fund money available. Now we can give general fund money back to the people, right? Which is what we should be doing. My big look right now, the one thing, the bone I got right now is with education. And last year, I don't know if you recall, but there was an Idaho Education News article that came out that said across the state, Idaho school districts were sitting on over $800 million in rainy day funds, right? This year, same article comes out, $716 million this year that Idaho school districts are sitting on for rainy day funds. And in that article, they list the biggest offenders of public education and the biggest offenders of public charter schools. According to Idaho state law, which took me a few days to find because nobody knew where this 5% number came from that was mentioned in the article. Everybody's like, I don't know. So I found the statute. It clearly states that they can keep no more than 5% of their annual budget, or I always forget the name of that thing. There's another source, the little box we use per student's funding. I always forget the name of it. It drives me nuts. Either way,
lockbox or something.
No, so they have the funding formula. The way it's used, there's a term.
Oh God! Oh, it's like a formula. Okay.
There's a term for the unit. It's a funding unit per number of students.
Gotcha.
So they can do 5% of their annual budget or 5% of this unit, whichever is greater. That's all the law states. These schools are sitting on 15, 20, 30, 389% of their annual budget this year.
Wow.
And then, so if this is rainy day funds and they're sitting on $716 million across the state, plus we're funding PSEF, which is rainy day funds for education, at close to $300 million a year, which one's going to give? Are we going to allow them to continue to break the law? If they are, again, I'm looking into it, so I don't know if there's levy money rolled into that or how that 15% breaks out. But if they are breaking the law, I will find out, and there will be accountability through their budget. So, if we're going to continue to allow them to hoard $800 million one year, $700 million the next, and then keep telling everybody we're not funding education while they're sitting on close to $1 billion a year, should we take away the PSEF funds, or is that going to affect rural schools? Like, that's the balance. Like, what do you do? Because when it comes to us, we just have to cut. We can't pick and choose. Like, oh, if you're a district this size, you don't get access. That you can't do that.
Right.
And so figuring that out is going to be the challenge. How do we get that accountability without hurting rural districts that are struggling and actually doing the right thing? You never hear horror stories coming out of them for misusing IDLA funds, right? That's all happening at the big schools where they're double dipping and breaking the law. But if we take away IDLA completely, then our rural school districts could lose their accreditation because they need that course in order to keep accreditation.
Right.
And so that's the fight with the budget. It's going to be interesting, but
I'm glad you're there, Representative. This is it was when I heard the news that Tanner was headed over to co-chair, and then he brought along Harris and Bruce, Representative Chris Bruce. I was like, we're headed in the right direction. So it's really great to see. You guys have the ball now. Don't fumble it. Make it happen, my friend.
Ain't no fumbles from me.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, we'll let you get at it. We'll check back in with you again soon.
Okay, appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
And where can people follow you real quick and keep tabs on what you're doing?
I'm on X. I think it's Kyle Harris 1234 or something. It pulls up Representative Kyle Harris. I don't do a lot of social media, so
fair enough.
Facebook is. I got to vote for Kyle Harris or something. I don't know. I don't do social media that much. It's not worth the headache, so I just stay off of it.
All right. Well, eventually get a donate link. At least have that at the ready, and we'll have people.
Yeah,
donate.
I'm working on my website. I'll let you know when it's up.
Okay, great. All right, Representative. We'll talk to you soon, brother. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Rock and roll, brothers. I'm telling you, man, that's the kind of mentality you need. That is what we need to have. And like I said, guys, you got to hold these guys accountable, but they want you to they want to be held accountable. That's the whole purpose, right? Especially with our pledge. Like the whole point of our pledge is that, okay, these are the things I'm for and against. And then at the bottom of the pledge that they sign, it says, and I expect my constituents to hold me to account for these things. So we're going to hold them accountable. They're going to hold the bureaucrats accountable, and we are going to turn this ship around, guys. We are going to turn this ship around. You got to stay positive. I know everybody out there just wants to say, oh, it's not going to happen. You're right. It may not happen. It may not happen. But we need to stay vigilant. We need to have positivity. We need to cut through the noise and just stay with the signal. And I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. I am pumped. I had to do another cup of coffee today, or another pot of coffee. And it's totally kicking in. Okay, you guys, check this out. We got the salts. We got American Smoke Company. They got their salts. This is this is the cherry salt smoked 8 hours. They've also got this. Here's the one I haven't talked about yet. I think it's called Kiwi. It's wood from Hawaii, Hawaiian timber. And this was smoked for 12 hours with a Pacific Ocean sea salt. Coarse sea salt here. Look at that. The aroma is exquisite. I'm telling you, this is, it's so good. I mean, I wish they made candles that smelled like this instead of those like lilac and lavender or whatever. Like this is the scent you want, man. And you put it on your meat, you put it on your chicken. You don't have to sit there for hours and hours and hours smoking something. If you still want that flavor and you only have a limited amount of time, put this overnight on some on a pork roast or something like that to get that smoky flavor, or on your frying pan on your eggs as it's on your omelet as it's coming out. AmericanSmokeCo.com. There's the flavor profiles. Those are all the woods they have available. You can buy them individually or in a pack, and you'll be ready to go. So AmericanSmokeCo.com, AmericanSmokeCo.com. Head over there and pick up a batch for yourself and for your kitchen. Your family and your friends will love you for it. That sounds like a good tagline. I don't know. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
And I think people really think that what's good for Micron is good for Idaho. What's good for Albertsons is good for Idaho. Especially when you get into politics, you end up spending a lot of time with lobbyists, with business leaders, with the rich and powerful donors. I think it does become a bit of a bubble.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among a world silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to talk through some of these committees. We're going to show you some footage here because the committees are underway. The first week was get to know you kind of thing, and this week the committees started rolling out their work. And so just to get you a little bit up to speed, for those who are new to the program, new to watching Idaho politics, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're motivated. But let's go through a little bit of the system of how it works. So you've got a bill, right? You've got a bill in Idaho and you want to get it to be law. So you need to have it written up and formatted in the correct format, and the Legislative Services Office will help you do that. If you're a legislator, this all has to go through the actual legislators. And then the legislators go to a committee. They pitch their idea, they pitch their bill to various committees, or whichever one makes sense. If it's a tax bill, it'll go to the Tax and Revenue Committee. If it's a local government bill, it'll go to the Local Government Committee. So whichever committee it goes to, the chairman has the option to look at the bill and say, yeah, this looks like a good bill. We're going to have a hearing on it. But first, we're going to have to see if the committee would like to accept the bill and make it public. Because right now the bill is just your own little baby, and it's your possession, and you can share it with the world, or you don't have to share it with the world. You just keep it there. But you give it to the committee and you show up to what is called a print hearing. And at the print hearing, you present the idea. The committee normally says, this sounds like an interesting idea, so let's move forward. And so they will vote to print the bill. Once it's printed, it gets assigned a number, and these are the numbers that you normally see talked about throughout the session. H-234, Senate Bill 1251, whatever the case may be. Then it's scheduled for a hearing, and that is the full public hearing. That's where they get to bring in the experts. That's where they get the full explanation of the bill. Public testimony is taken at that time, in which case the bill is then voted on and then recommended to go to the floor for a full vote. And if it does that, and it passes in the House or it passes in the Senate, then it crosses over to the other chamber, and the whole thing starts over again. It doesn't need to get printed again, but the hearing process starts all over again. And of course, it's up to the committee's chairman in those different houses, different chambers, to decide whether or not it does get a hearing. So just because it passed the House, as we've seen often, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to advance any further in the Senate and vice versa. If it does, and it makes its way to the governor's desk, of course, we all know what happens there. The governor can sign it, he can veto it, or he can ignore it, in which case it becomes law anyway without his signature. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, an interesting presentation happened yesterday afternoon in the House Judiciary and Rules Committee, where Representative Ted Hill presented a bill trying to enforce a no-fly zone for drones over our correctional facilities. These are like our statewide penitentiaries and so forth. So let's watch a little bit of his presentation.
It's very difficult because the airspace is controlled by the FAA, and having specific restricted airspace is difficult to declare. It's easy over the prison because that's a consistent, always going to be restricted airspace. But the challenge is the drone threat is so extensive and where the threats are moving. So this case, it might be the stadium full of football stadium or something like this. This is why it's very difficult to actually legislate. This will be the first of its type, and I'm just giving you kind of heads up, this will not be the last. And I'm always the guy coming up with the bad news, but the drones are tremendously threatening. I started working on this 10 years ago when I was working for Indo-PACOM, trying to manage this thing. So I'm trying to address detecting them is difficult, stopping them is extremely difficult. So use that as we look at this bill. There's no funding required in this bill because we just want to get the laws on the books to actually have the detection equipment in place is more money than I'm willing to ask at this point. The Safe Skies Act should fill this with some money will come probably from the federal government that allows some of this technology. Technologies are directed energy weapons and so forth. You can't shoot these things down like a duck. They're going 50 miles an hour. You can't use a shotgun and shoot them. You can't.
Ted Hill, always great to watch his presentations on things like this. So apparently, and he explained earlier, apparently drones fly over penitentiaries and they'll drop, contraband, they'll drop drugs in, they'll drop cell phones in, and the security is none the wiser. So what's fascinating about this, of course, is always, the unintended consequences of bills like that, or like he explained, this is a very complicated issue. And so Representative Joe Alfieri, I wanted to show you a little bit of his exchange with Representative Hill here. He asked a very relevant question regarding the airspace over a facility like this. Let's watch that.
Representative Alfieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hill, my question is also about restricted airspace, and FAA controls air above a certain height. Is that right?
Yes.
Do we need to further define that in this?
It's
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, no. But if he, I don't think I could get some data on that. But this is established by that, and I'll verify if there's any concern. But it should not be a problem. This, when they set aside the restricted airspace, that is restricted airspace around the White House. Once it's classified, it's identified, and it's in the airspace. And I look at airspace charts all the time. I used to fly. They'll be restricted. There's a restricted space right now over the prison. It's already established as restricted airspace. So I'll verify if there's any doubts in that and make sure if there's any questions there.
Just a follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So, Representative Hill, my concern is that we might have commercial aircraft flying over, not commercial, but private aircraft flying over that, maybe private drones that are doing agricultural surveys and things of that nature. So, don't we need to say at a certain point, you can't fly a drone from 200 feet up or 300 feet or whatever it may be? You're an aviation expert. I'm not.
Well, Mr. Chairman, yes, this comes to the ground all the way, and that's
all the way.
So usually now. Say sometimes there's restricted airspace I've flown over that might have a cap at 5,000 feet. Sometimes, but frequently it's not. Over the White House is prohibited airspace. There's even more. You can't fly over that at all. Groom Lake, prohibited airspace. You fly over that, they arrest you. So there's these different definitions of airspace. It's very clear as a pilot. It's on our charts. We know where it is. You don't fly through them. And this is going to be this is going to be specific to the drones. They are aviators, and it's different. The airplane could be the same thing. He can't be flying over these prisons. He has the same restricted airspace.
Okay, so fascinating topic. The bill was printed, and they'll have a full hearing and get some more information on that. So interesting bill nonetheless, and a good way to kind of explain to you how the process goes with a very interesting bill. Okay, so yesterday there was also, like I mentioned at the top of the hour here, Representative Josh Tanner started this sort of this quiet tour of the House committees, and it was very fascinating. I want to bring Brian Allman in here to talk through this a little bit. It was such a great start. Did we lose Brian? Brian is not in. I thought we had him in, but he's having a little. Oh, there he is with the old chapeau on. Fantastic, Brian. I know you're outside. It looks like you're a bit frozen. Maybe we can get a better connection. Well, at least we know he's alive. That's good. Proof of life there. Maybe we can just have him call in to the program. We'll do some audio. It's not fine if this isn't working. But let's get up to speed here. We'll play this video. This was Josh Tanner yesterday when he hit up the Resources Committee, I think it was. And like we said at the top, like Representative Harris said, when we're talking about the budgeting, when we're talking about what can committees do to help this process, because again, if we are going to govern, if we're going to lead here, we need to get everybody on board. So let's watch a little bit of what Representative Tanner had to say to the committee yesterday. This was the first committee he went to. So just check it out.
lot of members come forward and ask me, they want to understand the budgeting process more. They want to understand where they can actually kind of dig into some stuff. I know you guys we have several members on JFAC that sit on this committee. So I think there's some really good, useful people on the committee that you guys could actually use. But when we look at budgets, most of it is driven from decisions that are made in committees like this. We pass bills, they have costs associated with them, and then they come to JFAC and they get funded. And then they get funded in an ongoing aspect going down the road. There are budgets, or there are bills that have been passed that were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I would encourage everybody, especially as we look through times like this, when we are looking at making cuts, to actually go back through some of the bills that have come through these committees and see if they're actually being used for how they were intended for. Are they still functional in the same sense? Or does the bill need to be revised and maybe reductions made? Or does it need to be repealed altogether? I think those are things we so often look forward instead of looking back. And I think this is a perfect year to make sure that we're looking back, making sure the laws that we actually put in place that have costs associated with them are still in that functionality of how we intended it to be. Within that, I do want to talk. I mean, the governor did do the 3% holdbacks, and it did affect multiple different agencies that this committee actually deals with. It did not affect all of them. Some of them are dedicated fund, and the governor looked at going after dedicated funds and as an additional aspect, but decided in the end he wasn't going to. It was still a toss-up even up until the final line where he was submitting his budget. They were debating over some of those. Again, I think those are some debates if you're looking at some of those dedicated funds, if we want to actually go after those dedicated funds. I don't necessarily think everybody looks at JFAC and says, JFAC, you guys make the decisions. And I think some of this decision should be made within these committees themselves and give recommendations back to JFAC on if they think that there are some dedicated funds that we need to look at. Now, some of those are statutory and need to be done throughout this committee. Some of them JFAC can do on its own. And Fish and Game, I'll just go through as one of them because there was no rescissions done within Fish and Game. Now, Fish and Game is one that doesn't take any general fund revenue. This is all dedicated fund and federal funds that come into that agency. But from a dedicated fund standpoint, and they had an interesting point. They said, well, if you take our dedicated funds, we're going to lose our federal funds. I dug into a lot of their federal aspects. I don't necessarily believe that, but that is also one that I think the committee should look at. And the hope is the more of you guys actually looking into things, I'm hoping people come up with ideas instead of it just being on JFAC alone. Now, our budget analysis, our analyst for natural resources, Janice Jessup, again, is a wealth of knowledge, and I think it's important for you guys to actually know who this person is. So if you guys do have questions on something when it comes to budget related, when it comes to this committee, that you know exactly who to go to, and she can get you the answers probably right off the top of her head, but if not, really quickly. And then she's going to walk.
I mean, I know that was a long clip, but how awesome is that? He's showing up to the committee. He's saying, "Here's what we need you to do if we're going to make these cuts, and we're going to make government more efficient and all that sort of stuff. This is what we're going to do if we're going to doge, right? And here's a budget analyst to help you guys out." And I'm here in this committee. I think we have Brian Allman now by phone. Brian, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Matt. Can you hear me?
Hey, loud and clear. There he is. Fantastic. All right. So I think you also heard Tanner there, and you heard about what he's doing. I mean, from our research, this is kind of unprecedented that he's taking these notes, these recommendations, he's taking these charges to the committees.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm pretty excited about this. This is, I think, what a lot of conservatives, fiscal conservatives, have been calling for many years. We keep saying, okay, you need to cut the budget, you need to cut spending, you need to cut these things that the government's doing that is not necessarily part of its proper constitutional role and scope. And now here we're finally maybe starting to see the beginnings of that. We're seeing a coordination between JFAC and the germane committees to not only cut line items on the budget, but also to cut the policies that require those things to be spent. And that's what we've been hearing for years. We say, well, why don't you cut this? Why don't you cut that? Well, the legislature adopted some bill, passed some bill years ago that says we have to spend money on this, so we have no choice but to fund it. Well, let's go after those bills then. Let's go after that law that requires that, and then cut it off at the source.
Exactly. I mean and look, I can hear the naysayers now saying, "Well, we'll see if that actually happens." And you're right, we will see if that actually happens. But it has to start somewhere, right? The first step has to start somewhere, and it sounds like we've got some people finally who are willing to do this.
For sure, yeah. Trust but verify. I like the intention, and we'll see if it plays out. And we should encourage things like this instead of just dismissing it as, oh well, nothing's going to happen. We don't want to be like the guy on the internet who says nothing ever happens, because things happen when we make them happen, and when we encourage our lawmakers to make them happen and put pressure on them to make things happen. So let's encourage this process.
Right. Yeah. And let's elect the right people. I mean, I'm super proud of the work that all of our allies across the state have done to be able to educate people, to help them wake up, especially during COVID. I mean, that's kind of like largely where it happened for most people who are engaged today. And an increasing population who's moving into Idaho that's saying, I don't want what happened in California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Colorado to happen here. And so let's get busy. Let's watch this and pay attention and keep it rolling. So on this note, Tanner was in the Health and Welfare Committee this morning, which is a source of a huge part of our budget that is being, I think, wasted inefficiently through the Medicaid expansion program. But not just that, but Medicaid itself is just ripe with fraud and oversight that needs to be, or lack of oversight. Let's listen to a little bit of what Tanner had for that committee this morning, and we'll get your reaction.
Our budget. Again, I go back to the assumption aspects. I could probably agree with you to some degree that there are some behavioral health ones that will have larger cost implications and drivers down the road in other areas. But again, the Constitution of the state of Idaho says we have to have a balanced budget. And when we look at revenue, I mean, that's why we set revenue. We try to set that as early as we can, so that gives us a good idea of where we're actually at. Currently, we're looking at conformity within the Big Beautiful Bill, so we'll push in that conformity aspect. Then we know from an economic aspect of what we want to try to make sure we have on a bottom line, because what's happened is we've seen health and welfare come back year after year after year with supplementals, so we have to make sure that bottom line has some flexibility in there. And then we look at the rest. If there's money in there to do this stuff, it makes it easy. When there's not the money in there to do that stuff, it makes it more difficult. And sometimes you have outcomes just based on that can lead to cost drivers outside. But like I stated before, some of the times when we think that there's assumption of a cost, it's not always there. Sometimes when we don't think there's an assumption that there's going to be a driven cost from this, there actually is a larger one. So those ones are tough, and I think every single person you're going to talk to is going to give you probably somewhat a different answer. That's why my recommendation would be for you guys to dig in, not just listening to a lobbyist or the department or somebody else, but doing your own analysis and bringing as much information you can. Use that brain that God gave you and try to come up with what you think would be best for the state.
Come on.
Imagine
now,
that.
Brian. Come on.
Yeah, and that's that's where we're hoping to see a shift here, because spending is often driven by, well, as you said, lobbyists and the agencies, the departments. They say, hey, we want this much money. Lobbyists come in and say, hey, they need this much money. And JFAC says, okay, we'll give you that much money. And the legislature says, okay, we'll pass the policies that enable it. Well, we always need to have another voice in the conversation, and that is the voice of the taxpayer, the ones who are being asked or, asked very, very, forcefully to fund all these things. And, we should have a voice too, as taxpayers, as citizens. And that's why I'm always encouraging people, through my platform, through your program, to get more involved and to talk to legislators. But I'm glad to see Representative Tanner saying the same thing. Let's actually, the legislators we elect to represent us need to be digging into these things and not just taking the agencies or the lobbyists' word for it.
Right. Yeah. And I will say this, there is there's oftentimes the argument that can be made that the legislators who are only there, for a few months, and, a lot of them have other businesses and other lives. I mean, that's the way we designed it, right? These are citizen legislators that, and as often has been debated, the legislative branch is not chock full of people working directly for the legislators. So, in fact, there's very few. And so the amount of work that it takes to be on JFAC diving into these budgets, I mean, line by line and looking at everything, when you're the chair of a committee and you've got all these other things going on as well, there simply is not any time in the day to dive into those things. And so I believe that these chairmen are very grateful for the work that Tanner's doing here and the encouragement he's giving to committees to work as a committee and dive into this stuff and really get to the heart of the matter. There's plenty of legislators that do a lot of that work, even if they're not on JFAC, and sometimes they get shut down, but at least they're out there doing the work. And I think that as long as we build a larger coalition, they're going to get this stuff done. And to help me prove that point, Ron Mendive, Representative Ron Mendive, who's the chair of the Resource Committee, this is how he introduced Josh Tanner yesterday with a little bit of like, I'm so glad you're here. Check this out.
Invites the chairman of the germane committees to come and testify before them about the budgets for the different agencies that we oversee. And I look at the fishing
Can you
game
start this
budget or
back?
the
Can you start this back? We
Department
missed the
budget
top
or
of it.
Parks and Rec, and it's kind of JFAC invites the chairman of the germane committees to come and testify before them about the budgets for the different agencies that we oversee. And I look at the Fish and Game budget or the Department of Lands budget or Parks and Rec, and it's kind of a they're large budgets, and I really don't know their needs. So I've never really responded to that, but this is a little bit different approach, and I'm grateful to Representative Tanner for bringing this to us. So we're going to learn a little bit more about budgeting, and I think he'll show us some places maybe perhaps online where we can learn some things. And so this is kind of more of a committee approach up front, so we're a little more involved in the process, which I think is really good. So anyway, Representative Tanner, the floor is yours.
Yeah, kudos to Representative Mendive for kind of like opening up the kimono there a little bit. I mean, he's like, I kind of don't really know exactly what these agencies need, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like I said, in the past, they kind of just took the agency's word for us. We need this. This is necessary. Give us money. And JFAC said, okay, sure. I mean, I always hear every time I go to a district meeting, and my Senator Grow, who's the other co-chair of JFAC, talks about coming onto JFAC in 2018, 2019, and how he felt it was just a rubber stamp committee. The governor and the agency said, we want this, and they said, okay, you got it. So it's fantastic to see that changing, and I think Representative Tanner is a big part of that, and some of the others, they're changing the course of the ship, and it's a big ship. It's going to take a little bit of time to change it, but they're putting it in the right direction, getting the actual legislators involved, getting citizens involved, getting more voices, more eyes on this to find places where we can make things more efficient or take things out if they're just not the proper scope and role of government. That's
right. All right, Brian, very nice. Thank you for backing everybody up on this. I think we're one mind on this, and we hope it succeeds. Where can people follow you and follow your next work?
GemStateChronicle.com, at Brian Ullman on Twitter and everything else. I'm working on some stuff on code cleanup and all the the big binders that the governor had at his State of the State address, what's actually in those, what it's going to take. Representative Redmond just had a bill this morning that it was apparently super long, talking about fixing up the code. So important stuff, kind of goes under the radar. I'll bring it to you as soon as I can.
Great. Thanks, Brian. All right. We'll talk to you soon, brother. Take care.
Yeah. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, that too. Good luck on the video. Okay, so in the realm of budgets, we heard Representative Harris talk about rainy day funds. We heard all of the Democrats are saying, well, why don't we just pull back on cutting the tax breaks, like put a pause on tax breaks. Well, there was something that happened a couple of years ago where they tried to get the state to buy gold and buy silver, and the governor vetoed it. Let's bring in Representative Rob Beiswinger, who knows all about this stuff because he just released an article over on his Substack talking about how with the price of gold and silver being what it is today, we might have missed a golden opportunity.
I can't hear anything.
Oh, well, we hear you. I can't hear you. No. Well, let's see if our producers can help him out. Let's throw up the Substack real quick as he tries to maneuver the microphone there. This was the Substack that he released, the Governor versus Gold, how Governor Little's misguided veto is costing Idaho hundreds of millions of dollars in a tight budget year. Can you hear us, Rob?
Yeah, I took my headphones out, which usually that works better, but apparently not today.
Well, it happens. Okay. Well, we were just highlighting the article you presented everybody about this, and I was just saying, it seems like Governor Little missed a golden opportunity here when he vetoed that bill. I had to get that pun in one more time.
I appreciate it.
Walk us through what you're looking at here.
Well, so Idaho is home to Money Metals Exchange, where I work. We're one of the largest gold and silver dealers in the country. Idaho has really a long tradition of mining, of being in the precious metals business, in different fields. And a couple of years ago, before I was in, this is my second year, first term in office, but there was a bill 2 years ago that would have just allowed the state treasurer, not required, but allowed her to take all these idle monies that Idaho has and just take about up to 7.5% of those idle monies and invest it in gold and or silver. So she had the option to it. She would have to, research how much, the storage fees would have cost and all that kind of stuff should have been on her. And technically she wouldn't even be required to do it. Other states are requiring it. And again, 7.5%, but equated to a whole bunch of money. And then gold back then, the gold price per ounce was roughly like $2,400 an ounce, depending which day, which month you're looking at, right? So it was definitely, which at the time was a little bit on the higher end of where it had been. But at that point, it had been below $2,000 an ounce. But then after, so the bill went through the House and Senate, it was a little bit contentious. There's some tight votes on it, but eventually ended up on the governor's desk, and he vetoed it. And we had some statements in there saying the fiscal note wasn't good enough, and so on and so forth, which I think is pretty bogus. But since that's happened, that veto, gold has essentially doubled in price, or almost doubled in price. It's now, like, I think I was just looking up here a minute ago, gold was like $4,700 an ounce on the spot price. So that money
that's the highest ever, right?
Yeah, we're all-time high territory. We've just blasted through. They used to talk about levels of resistance. Well, I don't know there's no resistance level anymore. I think we've just blown through all of it. And so gold is now approaching $5,000 an ounce. And really, it was a pretty safe move. And gold and silver, these aren't tech stocks. Gold and silver have been considered money for thousands of years. In the Old Testament times, New Testament times, ancient Egypt, all these. I think was the JP Morgan Chase said gold is money, everything else is credit, or something like that, right? So it's not new, it's not a fad stock, it's not Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, which are new and more speculative. I'd say this is like the safest way to have money. Our whole financial system used to be based on gold and silver, and we've definitely gotten away from that last 50 years. And Idaho had a chance to do it, and the governor, unfortunately, didn't agree with that. Utah, by contrast, has done this bill. They have made a purchase. They are storing at a place as a Brinks location in Utah that they store at. So states are doing it. We missed a chance here, and honestly, we could have doubled our money essentially at this point on gold. If it done silver, silver's up 200%. It was basically about $28 an ounce back then. Now we're in like the mid 90s. So if this had happened, if the treasurer gone through with all this kind of stuff, we really could have $500 million more in Idaho's idle money program if this simple bill had just been signed and then executed by the state treasurer.
Right. And again, it's not necessarily saying that the state would have then sold, to reap the benefits of it, but the fact is this is such a huge jump that it almost, I hear people say, actually, precious metals have been suppressed. Like their real value has been suppressed for whatever reason for so long that this is just the beginning of really seeing exactly what the value of this stuff really is. Do you think this thing goes high? Way higher than it is now?
Personal opinion, yeah, I think it's going to keep rolling here. I just don't see there's not a lot of better options anymore. Because you look around, what are your other options? You can do the stock market, and the stock market's held up really well. I mean, you got to hand it to it. I mean, people, I think, like I would have been, I've surprised myself. The stock market has done as well as it has. It's held up and not had more of a retraction. But inflation does increase the prices of lots of things, not just
True.
gold and silver. Inflation can cause food inflation, cause car inflation, and so on, right? And so you see like gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, all surging up too over the same time period. So it's not just gold and silver, even though those are much safer investments, I would argue, because there's so many ounces widely traded. It's traded well over the world. They're not just, especially gold is not so much an industrial metal. It's money. These central banks around the world, I mean, when they're buying by the metric tons of it, they're not like you and me, like, well, hopefully I can scrape together a quarter of an ounce or something. They're buying literally huge portions of it. If you're trying to say I want to take $100 million and buy gold or buy metals, you're going to buy gold. What real estate are they buying? What the stock market's invested. Like, where else are you going with your money at this point? And so a lot of the really big money around the world, especially the eastern part of the world, is going really strong into gold. So I still think they'll go up. And now you might have a drawback. I mean, maybe silver goes back into the 70s for a while. I mean, all that stuff's definitely on the table. But every time you see silver and gold drop, they rally almost immediately, sometimes like within hours. There was one
just
night,
buy more.
right? I mean, I checked my phone and going to bed one night, just curious what was going on, and silver had dropped in the overseas markets by like $8 an ounce. And you thought, oh, okay, we're gonna have a retraction here, right? A correction. But then by the morning, it was down only $1 an ounce. So it had basically gained back $7 an ounce within hours of it.
Wow.
And again, these are supposed to be boring investments, predictable, kind of just protect your savings, insurance policy. I mean, it's gaining percentage wise. It is going like, better than a tech stock. So it's a little different time that's been over the years.
Yeah. So, well, then that begs the question. I mean, has the ship sailed, or do we try and run a bill like this again? And maybe we don't buy as much because the price is so much higher, but maybe there is room to say, hey, you guys, we need to get on this.
I mean, I can tell you, we're still selling. I mean, people are buying at a high clip, so I still think, and again, if you're, we talk to customers, if your view is to make money next month, like, you never know, right? And this could sink, it could hold down, whatever, but if your view is longer term, like a year, 5 years, 10 years, I definitely still think there's plenty of room to run here. We got $38 trillion in debt. I mean, we're not really solving that problem. If you hadn't noticed, like, we're doing some good things on other issues, but the debt is really it keeps moving up. There's all kinds of, trade wars going on and shooting wars, and all those things are recipes for buying gold and silver. And I just don't really see any of that really calming down. I mean, maybe my crystal ball is wrong, I guess, and I definitely could be wrong, but I still think it's plenty of time to buy. Though there is talk about still buying. Yeah. And you would get the dollars we have would now basically buy half the amount of metals we would have gotten just 2 years ago. So, but when you have an inflation and things spiral, it might just keep spiraling upwards too. I mean, it might be silver sits at 150, here this year. So.
Right. You guys did pass a bill last year though that cut capital gains tax on precious metals, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So like the feds have their own capital gains, but the states have their own capital gains. Because really it's a form of money. When you go to the bank and trade your monies out, you don't get hit with capital gains for doing it. So it's kind of a way for Idaho to say we recognize gold and silver still as money, so we're not going to tax it,
right,
like you would a typical buying and selling Walmart stock, for instance.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll keep tabs on this, and maybe if it's you or somebody, I know this is also your business, so it might look funny if you ran the bill to say, hey, come buy gold from me or something like that. That being said, go ahead.
Well, honestly, I do tell people, I'm right up front with, because people ask me, you should run the gold bills. Like, well, it does look a little bit controversial. I'm not one of the owners, so I wouldn't, really benefit should the sale happen. True. But in the bill, there's no obligation for the state either to buy from Money Metals or to store in our depository. There is another depository in state. Like, they can figure that out. And obviously, I wouldn't want the company to make money on it. It would put me in an awkward spot. But yes, I think this should in some way, make this happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Before I let you go, what else are you working on? Because you're the big medical freedom guy as well. I don't want people to forget that. You worked with Foreman last year, Lenny last year on this stuff. Really great stuff. What? Anything else in your wheelhouse? What are you working on this year?
Yeah, definitely in that angle. I keep finding myself getting back over there. We'll have a revised Medical Freedom Act bill. This one will clean up the language in the schools and daycares. So we didn't really catch every code across the state. The school language, for example, on vaccines says you're required to do it, but you can be exempt for any reason. Well, why don't we just say you're not required to it? And I had a bill for that last year, but just with everything else going on, this bill took off. We just kind of let this one run as the one we did, and I'm glad we did that. That was the right choice. So there's that one we'll go through. I think we'll have wide support in the legislature. Hopefully, the governor will go along with it. I've got one bill regarding mosquito abatement districts. Some of these places in certain counties in the state, not most of them don't have anything like this, but they will tax and then spray their citizens against mosquitoes, is the rationale. But there are people who don't want to be sprayed. They're trying to opt out, and these districts are not honoring that. They're just ignoring the citizens who are getting sick from this stuff. So I'm going to put in some safeguards there as my plan to protect them.
That's great. I talked with some folks. They shared some video, intimidation videos with me over the summer, and that is a very, very big topic. So I definitely want to have you back when that bill comes around, and we'll talk more about that. Representative Rob Beiswinger, thanks for joining us. Where can people follow you and keep track of your work?
Yeah, thanks. If you go on to X, formerly known as Twitter, it's just my name, Rob Beiswinger. Good luck spelling it. On there, and then on Facebook I have Idaho, then the numeral 4 Rob, Idaho for Rob. You can find there. idaho4rob.com is the website. So yeah, anywhere there would be helpful, and just I would love to appreciate your support and have me on here.
Fantastic. All right, brother, we'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day. Keep it up.
All right, thank you. Excellent. All right, everybody. Well, can you imagine hearing that the governor vetoed a bill that would have had gold? We could have had gold. We could have had gold at a certain price, and now it's just skyrocketed. Absolutely skyrocketed. Silver too. All the precious metals, like he had mentioned, all the precious metals are going, and we couldn't get on that train. Utah got on that train. Other places have got on that train, but we haven't. All right, the call-in number, 208-402-4915. Leave us a voicemail, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you want. Leave us your name and town. Let us know what's on your radar, what your feedback is. Anything that you heard today. The comment section was blowing up. I saw I think there were people arguing in the comment section. I don't know what platform it was on, but it was happening. But you can leave your message there, 208-402-4915. Also, if you are out in the fields and you just only get small amounts of data and you want to just listen to us after the program is live, IdahoSignal.live. IdahoSignal.live on your smartphone. You can go there. You can do IdahoSignal.live, and then you just say add bookmark, and it puts a little like app icon on your phone, and then you just hit that. You go there, you press play, and you can listen to the show, the latest episode, right there on IdahoSignal.live. Of course, we're also on Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, wherever we should be. Do we need to be on TikTok? I'm getting the feeling we might need to be on TikTok. You need to call me and let me know if we need to be on TikTok. Put it in the comment section if we need to be on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. Maybe if we had more Lily Almond, we would be on TikTok. But Lily Almond's coming back this week. Don't you fret. All right, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.